we go. We're going live. We have Russ is back.
I'm leaving. See ya.
Mike's out of here. Don't go anywhere, Mike. We're going to get into my topic of discussion today, which is on my blog, which has gotten everybody really angry. Already 600 of you, and incredibly 600 of you in like 30 minutes have weighed in on who the best Canadian team will be in 2017-18. But in the meantime, Russ, you had something that you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, let's talk movies because summertime is a time for movies, and even though this movie will come out September 1st, I've been looking forward to it. It's been playing in Canada, but not in the States, and it's the Goon movie. It's called Last of the Enforcers, and I like the last Goon movie. I admit I did go on a junket and interviewed the guys, and it was fun to do that. But even seeing the movie before I interviewed the guys, I thought there was something there. And actually, the second one's always hard to do, right? We never talk about Slapshot 2 for good reason.
Or 3. There's a 3.
Friggin' brutal.
Or 3. Like 3, you shouldn't even own that in your house. Like you shouldn't even. There's just no way. I think wasn't one of the Baldwin brothers in Slapshot 3?
Yeah, Billy Baldwin or Stephen Baldwin. Which
like come on.
No, see, this is the thing. Pete Weber has a copy of Slapshot in every room in his house. The copy of Slapshot 2 is only one place, where he keeps the toilet paper in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that makes sense. But this one looks good, and marks to them for not calling it Goon 2. That was smart. And so it's all about Doug Glatt. He's the team captain now, Sean William Scott, but he's starting to get his ass beat in the rink, and so he has to learn how to fight with his left. Like that's his big weakness. Everybody figured it out, and it's funny because like growing up, like being a basketball player for a long time, you had to learn how to go left. Right, that was like a big thing. Like if you couldn't go left, I could basically push you to the right side of the court defensively,
right?
And I'd steal the ball eventually because you wouldn't have a move.
See,
right? So I think it's interesting that they brought this up in hockey fighting, like because I'd never heard of this. Right? It's a good take on it. The best part is, and people can go to Sportsology and see the clip if they want. But the best part is when you see him and Schreiber fighting. It's amazing to me that before the first movie, Liev Schreiber had zero hockey knowledge. He had to learn everything from scratch, and now you're watching him, and he's completely believable. Like, you believe that this guy is the best enforcer there ever was. It's pretty cool.
That's cool. Brings out one of my favorite parts of Rocky 2, by the way, which is
well, I was going to say they basically stole the plot device of Rocky 2.
Yeah,
because
Rocky 2 is different because it's in Rocky 2 he knows his best hand is left, and he makes him fight right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the best parts of Rocky 2, right? Is the fact that when he tells him he can switch and go left-handed against in the big bout, like when he's waiting, want to go left, I want to go left, no, and then he switches left-handed and he starts beating the hell out of him.
Well, the funny thing is when he's practicing before the big fight with Creed, he's got him tied up with his left hand tied with the rope, and he's doing this with the right hand. It's like but
Rocky 2 is a good movie.
It is a good movie. Rocky 2 was really good. After that, I started losing. After 3, like, Rocky was dead to me.
Yeah, Rocky 3 was starting to lose it, right? Because Rocky 3 is the Mr. T Rocky, right?
Rocky 4 is the jump the shark moment.
Yes.
When it gets political and he's fighting Drago and Gorbachev and his own wife and Brigitte Nielsen, something's wrong.
That's the last Rocky I saw until the remake. I saw the remake. I thought it was decent, but it wasn't decent enough that it would get me interested in Rocky again.
Well, Creed was a pretty good movie.
It was good, but it wouldn't get me interested in Rocky again. I liked it as a one-off in my mind, but like even if they regroup with all those characters and do it again, I probably won't care.
But I have to say, I liked the first Goon. I know that it's been out in Canada, and I know that I've seen and heard interviews with some of the Jay Baruchel, I think was the director. So he was promoting the movie, and I'll see it because I liked the first one, but I'm a little skeptical because the second one is very rarely is the sequel, even though it's not Goon 2, is ever as good as the first.
Like, is it going to have a theatrical run down here?
Yeah, it's going to have a theatrical run, and other people in the cast. Allison Pill's back. I can't remember, was Alicia Cuthbert in the first one? I don't think so.
No.
So she's in this, and that's good. So that's a good ad. And there's always guys that play. I think I saw a clip of George Paros, Like there's always retired guys that make it into the Goon movies that have good little cameos.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so we'll look for that.
Along those lines, before we start the show, of summer television worth watching. Like, so this is the worst time of year for television for sure.
Yeah,
you're out of everything, and I've gotten totally into something that I didn't get into before.
Iron Chef America?
No.
That's always good.
Which is on Netflix, which is The Flash. Okay, like I did not watch The Flash prior.
You're talking about the Flash on CW?
Yeah, that's on Netflix.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I like it.
Great friggin' show. My gosh, they did a heck of a job with it. I mean, and it's well acted, and I can't believe how much, how they could possibly do like what feels like a full budget movie all the time.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing. Like
it's a little campy though, but other than being a little campy, I like it for everything else. I do.
Like I'm still of a believer that superhero movies need to be a little campy. Like I think that there's something to the fact that these guys were comic books. Like this is this comes out of our youth. This is not like I'm not the really, really dark Batman like movies. I don't really connect to them very much. I like the Avengers movie was great because it had that to it as well. Like that the moment when in Avengers, the incredible moment where like Captain America is jumping through with his shield, like blocking things, totally campy, completely like right out. You might as well be writing "pal" above him. But, but awesome, like just awesome to bring things back to that part of your childhood.
I think there were a few humorous moments in the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. You had to sort of look for them, but it was a serious depiction. But honestly, I would rather have that than and I was flipping through the channels a couple nights ago and seeing Batman Forever, which was the Joel Schumacher Batman with Val Kilmer and Nicole Kidman and Chris O'Donnell as Robin, and him saying, "Holy rusted metal Batman," and like doing a Adam West Burt Ward thing, and it was pathetic.
And of all the Batman movies, and Batman of all the characters is the darkest. Okay, so like that's and I get that and actually, what is amazing, freaking absolutely incredible, is the Batman Lego movie.
I heard that's good.
Which will shock you in its darkness. In how it actually does depict, and it's apparently like from what I've heard, now I wasn't a real comic book guy who knows the actual backstories of everybody in depth like my son does. He knows everything, and he and other people I've talked to say that the Batman Lego movie is the closest to the actual real Batman. Like they actually stuck with it, and it is dark, but it is hilarious.
I do want to see that. The one thing about the TV show, we used to see it like. I think we were seeing it probably like 3 years or 2 years after it was off the air, and I loved it, right? And the thing, I knew there was something wrong with that show, like basically when I was tuning into the humorous part, because, I was like 8 years old, right? Like you don't get all the little gags and stuff right away, but I was starting to get it when Liberace was hitting on Aunt Harriet, because like in my mind, I was like, none of this makes sense. And that's when I realized, okay, this is like, not a serious thing, and then I really loved it.
Yeah, I know. Batgirl made sense to me as a kid.
Oh yeah, Batgirl always made sense.
Jeez.
That Batgirl. Anyway, moving on. Batgirl. That was a hell of a. Oh man, that was a moment.
Yeah, I was more a Catwoman person.
But the Flash is really good. Season 4, there's going to be some big changes. That's all I can tell. I don't want to ruin it for you.
Okay, yeah. So I'm still in season 2. So there, but I'm. My daughter fell in love with it, which is really something because she's not a superhero person. She's actually in season 3, and where I got mad at her for like skipping ahead because I'm like, we were watching this every night. We were watching like one of these together, and now she just blew through it last weekend. Spent like boxed herself into a room. But
what I give the CW great credit for is back in the day, if the CW had some sort of show, it would have been like Party of 5. It would never have been something like this with great special effects. So good for them.
My current Netflix addiction is Sherlock.
Okay.
Sherlock's great, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You know what? Here's the thing. I've seen so many of them. I liked the movies. I did. I thought the movies were terrific. And I used to watch the original, the Basil Rathbone stuff with my dad. I don't think anybody really could top that. Although the movies were really good because of the special effects and the acting. But the original Basil Rathbone, like, To me, that's the gold standard.
Well, I mean, Russ, you should give it a chance because they basically modernized Sherlock to modern day, and then trust me, I was skeptical too, and it's really good. It's not like
I don't want to see Sherlock coming out of Taco Bell. Like I don't want to see that.
Well, we're on his cell phone, yeah. It's kind of interesting. It's good. I mean,
seriously, what's Sherlock Holmes going to do? Is he going to figure out the ingredients of Dr. Pepper?
Elementary. Yes, indeed. All right. Moving on. Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday, July 13th, 2017.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. The podcast comes every Monday through Friday, usually at this time, and probably at this time for a while now, 1 o'clock Eastern. And now that we're through the rookie camps and through all the, now everything, it's funny. The rookie camps are like this brief tease that we're back in the hockey season, but we're not. We're not back at all. Like now we have a good long solid.
It's 7 weeks until.
Yeah. Well, it depends. Like I know I've been invited before. If I feel like going to Michigan, I could go to like World Junior Evaluation Camp soon. If I feel like it.
That from the USA Hockey people too. I'm looking for somebody to go out there.
Well, their summer showcase is from July 28th, I think, to August 4th, and it's Canada, U.S., Finland, and Sweden playing.
No Nolan Patrick, though. Nolan Patrick won't be playing.
Well, Liljegren is heading there after. Yeah,
it's pretty good. I mean, and I really appreciate the invite that we got from USA Hockey about this. So we may figure that out. But really we have a while to go. So still players to be signed for sure, and we still have trades to be made because teams are nowhere near complete in a lot of and I'll be getting into that more as we go along in the next couple blogs. Next week, my whole focus is going to be looking at teams' depth charts now versus last year when they started the season. Are they really better or not? And in doing that, I started going through the Canadian teams, and it came upon me that this was an interesting question to ask, and I asked it of the bloggers today and of my readers today, and I want to ask it of you guys: who the best team will be in 2017-18, like the best Canadian team. So to me, because this has always been pretty. It gets more complicated than it's been in many years. Put it that way. This has been an easy topic for a long time. Like Montreal has basically been the best Canadian team.
Right.
And there's been no real question about that. Now, they're definitely not winning this poll. And last year, I wrote, the Senators were the best team. I mean, they came within one goal of going to the Stanley Cup Finals, for crying out loud.
Now I'm not sure if Montreal is in the top half. I think they might be fourth. They might be right smack dab in the middle.
So I went through each team a little bit on my blog, and I'd like to go through it here, too. Like let's look at Montreal first briefly, and then we'll go through this and decide who we think the best is. Montreal, they lost Radulov, and they're possibly going to lose Markov. They did gain Drouin and Alzner, and they of course they lost their prospect as well. But he wasn't a part of last year's team, so let's not changing things. They're going to get a whole year in training camp out of Coach Julian, which is big. That'll help a lot. But they've yet to figure out, a place for Galchenyuk. Center, is he a winger or is he an Islander, as I put? But they have Carey Price, and that alone could equal the playoffs. But is Montreal better or worse than they were last year? Russ, start with you.
I think they're slightly better. I know that's not the popular thing to say, but I think their defense is better defensively. They have a defensive coach. Carey Price is healthy. They added Drouin, so they'll score some goals. They probably won't score as many as you want them to, but I think with that formula, they'll be slightly better than last year.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think I'm with you. Just on the coach alone, and I think that they have. I think Alzner's going to help. I do think Markov will be back. I think he will get Markov in eventually. So I'm saying that as well. Like if they don't get Markov back, then I think they could be the same, possibly a little bit worse. But if they get Markov back, I don't think Mark Streit's going to change them very much. But go ahead, Mike.
I think they're slightly worse because they didn't address their areas of need, which was a center. I don't think Drouin is a center. I don't think Galchenyuk is a center. So right now your number one center is Thomas Plekanec, and if it's not him, it's Philip Deneau, and that's not an answer. They still have Price, and Price is great. They still have Shea Weber, and Shea Weber is still in his prime. I think their defense got a little bit worse because Alzner offensively is nowhere close to Markov. And if they don't bring in Markov, then I think generating offense from the back end is going to all be on the shoulders of Shea Weber. You don't have Sergachev as a guy who could come in. Maybe Noah Juleson comes in. That's a possibility. But I just think, goals have been the problem for this team for 3 or 4 years, and they didn't. I mean, and I like Drouin, but I think goals are generated from your defense and from up the middle, and they didn't improve either area. So I don't think they're as good as they were last year.
So basically, we have them. Russ has them as being better. I have them being basically the same, maybe a little bit better. You have them not being quite as good.
Yeah, but I mean, look. If they added Larry Robinson in his prime, Mike would say, I still don't.
Oh, stop!
I still don't like him. You would.
No.
All right, Toronto. Let's move on to Toronto then. Saying that, years of draft picks and lucky ping pong balls have landed them Austin Matthews, and arguably one of the top defensemen of one of the top forward teams that fielding a decade worth of AHL teams will provide. Right. They are the most exciting team in hockey. Maybe Oilers fans might argue that one. They have a great coach. They have a solid goalie, but almost nothing after their top D-man to help them keep the puck out of their net. They can get leads, but can they hold leads? That is the question. And Lou Lamoriello yesterday or 2 days ago, I heard him actually throw out the first. I wouldn't say he quite said that there was pain coming, but he almost said that. He almost said it in saying, that this is going to be a really tough year for these guys, with the fact that they had such a great year last year, and there's going to be a lot expected of them, and now they're in their sophomore year, a lot of them at the same time, and that's bringing in Patrick Marleau may help that. Although Marleau's not the best at handling pressure, so Marleau's going to be an interesting situation there as well. So that's my take on the Leafs. I will sit there and say that they are going to be a little bit better, but I think that I think they're going to be better in the playoffs, but maybe not during the regular season. I think they make the regular season. In the playoffs, they win around. That's my feeling on them. So Mike, you can go second on the Leafs.
Okay, and I said this yesterday, but I think it bears repeating. Everything went right last year. No injuries. All the rookies had great campaigns. Freddie Anderson came in, and after a little bit of a slow start, really came to the forefront. Nothing went wrong, and they made
one thing, Mike. Not to interrupt you, but did you hear? I did hear yesterday something fascinating on XM that did go wrong, and I wanted to bring this up. And did you hear about the controversy? I'm sure you heard about this. The controversial Panarin goal, right, that happened during the year. That was allowed to stand. It was offsides, but it changed
Mm-hmm.
the outcome of a game. Chicago versus Toronto. It did happen. And it happened. And the NHL has since come out and said that they made a mistake on that call, which would have
they said it last year. Yeah,
would have given the Leafs another point, which gets them away from the
Capitals.
So anyway, so there's one thing that did not go right. Just throwing that out there.
Jesus.
Because you get away from the Capitals.
I know, but
it took a hike around a mountain to
I'm not talking about the micro. I'm talking about the macro. Everything went right, and they made the playoffs in Game 81. That's my point. If they, if all these rookies, if 2 or 3 of them don't have as good a year, now you've got an improvement. You brought in some veteran guys. You brought in Marleau. You brought in Ron Hainsey. You brought in Dominic Moore. That's going to help. It'll help in terms of the leadership on the team. And Babcock is a great coach. But, if Freddie Anderson doesn't have as good a year, if there isn't progress on the blue line, they've got a lot of young guys that they're, according to Lou Lamoriello, who said to me yesterday, they're satisfied right now with the state of their defense. I don't particularly believe that's the case. I think they're still looking for a defenseman, but I think they're going to pay the price that they want to pay. I think they could be better, but I still think that there's a move to be made here, either Bozak or Van Riemsdyk being traded. And if that happens and they address the defense, then I think that they'll be slightly better. But right now, I think they're basically going to be what they were last year. I think they're going to be challenging for a playoff spot, may get in, may not get in, exciting, but there's still progress that needs to be made in certain areas.
Okay. Russ.
I think they'll be slightly worse. I think they'll still be a playoff bubble team. I think the defensive struggle is still real. I think they're going to have to win a lot of 4-3, 5-4 games, similar to last year. And last year they scored a lot of goals, and sophomore slumps are definitely going to hit a few guys. There will be an injury or two. They're not going to get through another season without injury. So I think a slight step back, but that doesn't mean they don't make the playoffs. It just means they're going to struggle again to make the playoffs. I don't know if it'll be on the last day of the year or the last week of the year, but it wouldn't shock me if that's the way it rolls.
We'll definitely get into it. I think the last thing we'll do is go through these teams and ask if they're each playoff teams. Will it?
Okay.
Will it be? That's okay. No. I think that's something to do at the end. Will it be the Senators? Now, the Senators were the last team last year standing in the playoffs. They were a goal away from the Stanley Cup final. Remarkably, they shocked everyone last year. This year, there'll be a lot more expected of them, which will, and they'll have to show it was no fluke. That'll be tough. They have the best defenseman in the game, in my opinion. They have a very good, adaptable coach and a lot of heart. So to make it interesting. So, the Senators, will they be better than last year? The regular season, they had a really good regular season. They struggled towards the end, but then they had an incredible playoff run. So, Mike, you want to start with them? You can say that.
I think they'll be closer to last place than they will the Stanley Cup final. I said yesterday jokingly that they'll finish 30th because I said that last year, but I do think that they're, again, here's a situation where, they rode the emotional roller coaster of the Craig Anderson situation. It rallied everybody. They brought in Mike Condon as a backup, and he played like 23 straight games and got them through that stretch. And Craig Anderson had a great year, and I think he's 36 years old. How many more years can he have like that? They had that top four defense of Phaneuf and Ceci and Mathot and Carlson, and that's not there anymore now that Mathot is gone to Dallas through Vegas. There are some good pieces on that team, but the other factor we have to factor in is that Guy Boucher is one of these coaches that as time goes by, the teams don't get better. They get worse because he gets on their nerves. And that's possibly what's going to happen here. He's really demanding in terms of buy-in on defense. And after a while, the players just say, screw this. So I don't know if they're going to get better. I definitely think they're going to get worse.
Russ?
I think they're going to get slightly worse, but I think they'll still be a really good team. Fun to watch. You'll see more Colin White this year. You'll see more Yoki Paka. Those things will help them. Condon showed last year he was really good. I mean, they don't have a problem with either goalie that they put in. Their defense is pretty good. It's gotten a lot better. And so I think they're still a playoff threat. I do. I just, will they get as far as last year? Probably not. And that's why a little step back.
Yeah, it played well for them. It did play well for them last year for sure. Will it be the Oilers? Okay, the Oilers have the best player in Canada and Connor McDavid, and maybe the best player in the NHL. But that's Pittsburgh Penguins fans will still talk about Sidney Crosby there. That's another day for another time. They showed a ton of growth last year in the playoffs. They played the way great teams play the year before they become big, in my opinion. Like they played very well at times where they looked like they could run the table, and then other times they just looked horrible in the playoffs. We're giving up huge gaping opportunities. But it reminds me a lot of that Oilers team that lost the Islanders way back when, before they beat the Islanders and went on to beat everybody from there on. It reminds me of that team in a lot of ways. And McDavid and Draisaitl, they have one of the other top 5 players in the game. So in my mind, so this is a team I think they're going to be better. I think they'll be a lot better. I mean, not a lot better, but they'll be definitively better, in my opinion. Russ, why don't you go second on this one?
Yeah, I think, adding Jokinen is a nice addition. I think we'll expect to see a little bit out of Pajärvi. I'll tell you, this is odd, though. There's a headline yesterday from the Edmonton Journal. The 2017-18 Edmonton Oilers likely to feature refreshingly few NHL rookies. I don't know who wrote that. I'm not even going to look to see who wrote that. But I got to tell you, the teams that do well now add a few rookies and have good young legs that help the veterans. The fact that now all these guys are veterans isn't necessarily a positive. There's a lot more pressure on him now, and that's the thing. Pajärvi is definitely, he's played enough games where you're not even going to call him a rookie. So I think they're going to be exactly the same. I don't think they're going to be any better or any worse. Well,
supposedly Jokinen was brought in as sort of a mentor for Pajärvi, the Finnish grizzled veteran with the Finnish rookie, and if that works, that definitely will be a help. I mean, obviously, a lot of things.
Jokinen we're talking about, right?
What's that?
Jussi Jokinen we're talking about, right?
Yes. Yeah. Not Oli.
No, I know, not Oli, but nothing against Jussi Jokinen, but I do not see him as the mentor type, just from
Well, maybe they're talking about it in terms of the effort that he shows on the ice, because he is an energetic player. He does.
I think it's off the ice too, because Puljujarvi is a little bit immature. Not to say he's like goofy or anything, but probably could room with a guy like Jokinen and learn a lot about preparation on and off the ice. I think that's a big deal.
Now the thing is that I think everything hinges on them getting this Draisaitl situation settled.
What situation? There's no situation.
Russ, he probably wants an 8-year deal.
That's great. I want a new car too, but I might have to wait for that.
Well, I mean, there's going to be. I mean, right now it looks like there's going to be a little bit of a struggle because he's going to.
Oh yeah, so he's going to hold out, right?
I don't know if he's going to hold out, but you never know. It's happened before. I mean, let's assume the positive here. Let's assume that Draisaitl does not hold out and that he signs a 5 or 6 year deal at $8 million, something within reason. Edmonton's probably going to have to trade Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. That's
why they're probably not signing this deal.
Well, then there's going to be a holdout there because I mean,
there's not going to be a holdout. This
is a guy who deserves to be paid.
Everybody deserves to be paid. He doesn't deserve to be paid $8 million yet, in my estimation.
Okay.
He had one really great season, and I'm very high on Leon Draisaitl. But I'm just saying, if it's a matter of if I'm the GM and I'm going to lose a player of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins' talent, and I'm not going to get anything in return just to make a player happy early, I'm not doing it.
Well, the one consideration
I retain all the rights on him. It doesn't matter.
The one consideration here is that Sekera is probably going to be out for most of the year with the ACL. I think it was ACL, MCL injury. So their defense is not going to be as good. That means guys like Darnell Nurse.
Probably an awful signing too, because it was awful to start.
It was a terrible signing. But Darnell Nurse will have to step up. They'll have to get more out of Chris Russell, which I don't know if they're capable of getting more out of him because, he's at 30, 31 years old. There's just so many shots he can block. I think they're pretty much going to stay the same.
That's what I think.
If they're going to make a step forward, it's going to be on the back of McDavid because McDavid is a great player. If he improves on last year, which is tough to imagine, but it's very possible because he's such a great talent, then maybe they win a first round or win a second round and get to the conference final. But I think there's still moves to be made here, and the guys like Nugent-Hopkins being moved out and getting something for him or creating room for guys like Draisaitl salary-wise is something that Chiarelli's going to have to do.
Yeah. So Wes, where do you see them going? So you went first in this.
I went first. I said they were going to stay the same.
You did. So we all basically have them staying the same. I think they'll be a little bit better. So I'm going to say they're going to be a little bit. Now, will it be the Flames? Now, they have a new goalie as well. They arguably have the best defense outside of Tennessee. They have a great young star in Kachuk and have enough star power up front in Monahan and Gaudreau. I mean, they have plenty of compete with anybody at the forward level. I mean, this is a team that should be primed to really make a run when you look at it. If you didn't know what happened last year and you just looked at these rosters, you would say the Flames are as good as anybody in Canada. Can they do it? Why don't you start on this one, Mike?
Well, okay. If you start at the goal out and move forward on defense, I think, they're probably, if it's an argument between Anaheim, Nashville, and Calgary for the best defense in the Western Conference. You can't say that about Chicago anymore because Yarmolson getting moved. They have top two, and then it's a big question mark that going.
Right.
Going 3 through 6.
They lost 3 or 6. Yeah.
I think Mike Smith, Mike Smith has had his critics in Phoenix, but last year he played pretty well for a pretty bad team. And with that defense in front of him, I think he should thrive. My question mark is it's all on Gaudreau, Monahan, Matthew Tkachuk, and Bennett. And then if you look at the rest of their forwards, it's pretty pedestrian. It's, Frolik and Brouwer. And Backlund's a pretty good player. But I think that for that team to really take a step forward, they're probably going to have to find another weapon or two up front. Maybe there are kids in the organization that can do that. I think they're slightly better than they were last year. I think they have a chance to at least advance a round, and if they get the right path, they could maybe go to the conference final. But I still think they need to bolster themselves up front if they're really going to contend with an Edmonton or an Anaheim for Western Conference bid to the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah. All right, Russ.
Yeah, I think they're the best team in Canada. I'll just come out and say it. I think the Hamonic signing was massive. I think Smith signing was huge. I think those kids, there's not going to be a problem with. And to be honest, you could bring up Mark Jankowski. I think he's ready. I mean, he had 56 points in the A. He had 27 goals. He was a point a game in the playoffs. I think he'll get a really long look in camp, and then someone will just play the wing, and that'll solve the problem that Mike's worried about. I mean, and that's another big body with a really good shot who plays around the net. I think this team has great potential, and the blue line is very talented. They can move the puck. I mean, they do everything you want them to do. Giordano's healthy. This is the best team in Canada. Like, I think I don't even think it's close. I mean, Edmonton fans aren't going to like that, but I think that's just the reality right now.
Well, I think we're going to have a really great battle of Alberta this year, put it that way.
Yeah.
This is going to be the best battle, these are the best two Alberta teams we've had since the mid-'80s. This is really, like, as far as both these teams being kind of on top of their game, they're both getting there. They're both a couple years away from really being on top of their game. But, like 2 years from now, these teams will be phenomenal. But both of them right now are there. I think that they're better than they were last year. I still think there's something wrong with this team, but maybe Jankowski fixes that. Maybe Hamonic fixes that. I do agree with you that, that the signing, I've not been a huge fan of the goal, but I think the signing will be the kind of personality he is back there is going to be perfect for the young.
And he's a bigger goalie. They needed that.
The big goal, he plays the puck really well too, which is going to be something that's very important for them. It's going to make their defense in a similar way to what Rene does with Nashville. It makes it incredibly frustrating to play against a good defense with a great puck handling goalie.
Well, and see that's the thing, because I think what you see here in Edmonton versus Calgary going forward is Calgary is going to be more of a Nashville style team based on defense and goaltending, and probably reliant on the power play to generate a lot of their offense. And Edmonton's this freewheeling team, and it's going to be a clash of styles, and it's a question of which style will win.
Which is going to be fun, because last time when both these teams were good in the 80s, they were both freewheeling teams. And, and along with them in the 80s, the other team that was really good in the 80s that really no one talks about is the Winnipeg Jets, who were really good in the 80s for a while there, but they had to deal with the fact they were behind Edmonton and Calgary.
Yeah.
The Jets now, for years, we've been hearing about the fact that they have the best prospects in all of hockey, and now, in my opinion, it's time to put that forward and prove it. It's been many, many years now. There's still a lot of good young players who aren't ready yet, I know, but I keep hearing that about Winnipeg, so I'm ready for some of those players to play. Yeah. They already have two of the best young players in the game in Scheifele and Patrick Laine, no question about that. They have a really solid netminder in Steve Mason, who I think will be very good for them. And as long as he's healthy, Mason will be a difference maker on this team, because this is a team that's always had goalie issues. They've always masked it by we have so many goalies that we want to play, but really at the end of the day, it's like we talked about before. Scoring by committee is not scoring. Goaltending by committee is not goaltending. This is Mason comes in there and it should solidify that. They still have Jacob Trouba as well, and like I put in my article, maybe better. They have what they can get for Jacob Trouba, which is a lot. So if they make the right move for Trouba at some point this year, they're really solid. Now, the fans on the site really see them as the worst team in Canada. I have a tough time with that one.
No, I don't think that's true.
I don't think that's true either.
So, Mike, go ahead. Where do you put them?
Well, I think they're in the bottom half. I just don't think they're the worst. And we'll talk about the worst in a minute, because it's the only team that we haven't talked about. But, I mean, there's a lot of youth there. They did add Kulikov on defense. I still think that, they actually have, I think, they're spending too much money on defense right now. Kulikov's making over $4 million. Myers and Enstrom and Bufflin are all making more than $5 million. I think either you have to get rid of one of them to be able to pay Trouba, or you have to trade Trouba now while you still have him under contract to avoid another holdout situation, which might happen next year. And if you look at them right now, they have 10 restricted free agents after this season. So this is sort of a crap or get off the pot year for Paul Maurice and Cheveldayoff. I mean, there's talent there. Nick Ehlers is one of the best young forwards in hockey, and Laine is great, and they have firepower. And I think Mason will be an upgrade in terms of maybe a 1A, 1B situation with Hellebuyck. I just don't know whether they have enough to get in the playoffs in one of the toughest divisions. So I think they're sort of like basically what they were last year. And if they don't get injuries, they have a chance of making the playoffs. But there's something missing there, and there's a lot of unresolved situations there.
The big RFA for them next year is Nicky Ehlers. I mean, that's
massive
issue. I mean,
that might mean them trading off a guy like Brian Little at the deadline because he's a UFA and they may not be able to sign him next year if they're going to pay Ehlers the type of money he's going to expect. So
to put it in context, Mike, the only forwards they have signed for next year: Scheifele, Wheeler, Perreault, Andrew Kopp, and Patrick Laine. That's it. That's crazy. I mean, that's a tough off season, and especially if this team does well. If this team does well and they have a lot. The good news about that for Winnipeg fans is you got a lot of guys playing for money here. You're going to have a lot of motivated players on your team.
Yeah, and Russell talked about these guys, but they do have Kyle Connor waiting in the wings. They do have Roslovic waiting in the wings. So you've got some young guys ready to step up there. But, most of the RFAs that are coming up at the end of this year are guys that you can probably not have to spend a ton of money to re-sign. But Ehlers is going to be somebody who's going to make $6, $7, $8 million a year probably, and deservedly so.
Yeah, and then 1 year after that, you got to deal with Laine. So it's like you're going to have your two, and then still you get Scheifele. Fortunately, you have signed at a reasonable number for a while.
Yeah, but Wheeler,
yeah,
he's probably the one that goes. Yeah,
he's probably the one who goes because he's up there a little bit in age compared to the rest of this group. And although he's been so good with them and such a
yeah, but if Roslovic and Connor are ready to make the step, you don't need Blake Wheeler.
Yeah,
right. The only way Blake Wheeler stays is if he takes a hometown discount.
Right.
Next year they will have close to $30 million in cap space.
Yeah, that's crazy. I like this team. I think Roslovic and Connor should give them something.
Yeah.
Mason will definitely give them something. Look, we could rip the Kulikov contract for the time it is and the amount of money, but he will help them move the puck around at least. Even if he's not putting up numbers, he will help them stay mobile. And that's the big thing is because they were getting once you got back to their third pairing, they weren't as mobile. So now I think they're more formidable that way. They have a better goaltender. I think they will have a real good chance at the playoffs. I think the big key again is Dustin Byfuglien. His career high, I just looked it up, his career high for points is 56 games. Now, this is a guy who really should be able to break the 60-point barrier. He really should. Yeah. And if this is going to be the year, then that would help them tremendously. If he could get 65 points and get back to scoring like 15, 20 goals, that would be massive for them, and it would help their power play. And so I think they have a chance of being a playoff team. I think they will be better.
We got some breaking news here, guys. There are reports that former Rangers CEO Chuck Greenberg is close to a deal to buy the Carolina Hurricanes from the Carmanos, from Peter Carmanos, for a reported $500 million, and they would stay in Carolina.
Okay.
For how long?
The person the NHL has wanted them to buy.
No, but that's the thing. It's nice to say they're going to stay in Carolina because for this year they don't have a choice. For how long? Right. That's what I need to hear. I need to hear it
in the past, okay? Because I know people who have been involved in trying to buy teams, and the NHL generally has a 7-year rule. Okay, this for what it's worth. This is what I was told about Winnipeg, for example. Like Winnipeg, a lot of people thought that group, which has strong ties to Toronto and Markham and that area, but has put the team in Winnipeg. A lot of people believe that they were eventually going to move them out into Ontario, and but I was told that the NHL
dream alive.
I talked to the NHL, and different people at the NHL who have been involved in trying to purchase teams over the years. People who were involved in purchasing the Coyotes, and the general rule has been 7 years. That you have to, when you buy a team, you can't move it for 7 years. Now, I don't know whether that's the case here, but I'm just saying based on based on the past, the NHL has this sort of unspoken thing that you got to give it a go for 7 years. If you can't make it work in 7 years, we'll be behind you and help you find another place to go. Which in Florida, okay, with the new ownership group, which has been involved in it now for I think 3 or 4 years, with the Panthers, I think people are starting to think about that 7-year issue. It's that 7-year itch, I might say. But we'll see what happens. I mean, that could change. The NHL might really have wanted to but I'll tell you one thing that it's always a part of negotiations, which is funny. People don't really know this, but when when someone's buying a team, the NHL is incredibly involved in this. This is not.
I'm sure they are.
This is not Carmanos just selling to him like off the street, right? This is why Bastille doesn't have a team, or whatever.
It's being managed. It's managed.
Yes,
it's managed, and part of the negotiations of this, beyond the the parking lots and the stadiums and all these and the leases or the bad leases you got to get out of, or the people that you have to keep on. Like there's usually people that like Carmanos will require you to stay on. I remember in St. Louis, like I think it was John Davidson had to be kept on. Like JD had this, he had a huge contract.
Yeah.
And so someone was I knew someone who was looking to buy the Blues at one point, and that was an issue. It wasn't a breaking issue, but it was part of the negotiations, right? So the NHL could come in and say, okay, 5 years, we'll give you 5 years, but there's going to be, I wouldn't guess they would go any lower than that, and maybe, so the NHL does not have people buy teams to move them. That's just not.
And this is not connected. Well, this is sort of connected to this because there was a lot of speculation before, if this news pans out, that Carolina would be the team that would eventually head to Quebec with that brand new building there and an ownership group ready to take over an NHL team. One factor is the Canadian dollar is starting to get stronger against the U.S. dollar, and that's going to be a factor. If it gets, right now it's at about, I think it's 77 cents to the U.S. dollar. If it gets over 80, then I think you'll start to hear the talks of Quebec getting a team and being more realistic.
They've written about, and I'm not the only person who said this, but other people have said as well, that basically the NHL, from all indications, has told Quebec when you want to come in, you can come in. But Quebec's obviously waiting on the dollar, and because it's a whole lot of difference. If they can get that up to 85 cents even or something like that, it's a huge amount of money when you're talking about $700 million or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
Expansion.
Now, hey, I got to break in with this. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. I was not. I just became aware of it. Did you know that there's a hockey league going on with NHLers playing in it right now?
No.
It's called the Beauty League, and it's going on in Minnesota, and they just got through their first week. Here are some of the guys that are playing: Drew Stafford, Mario Lucia, Hudson Fasching, Nick Bukestad. Bufflin's going to play in it. He hasn't played a game yet. Brock Besser is going to play in it. He hasn't played a game yet, probably because they just had camp.
So it's all Minnesota and Wisconsin guys, probably.
Well, a lot of them. John Scott is the commissioner. Tyler Nanny. So yeah, that's Lou Nanny's brain.
An NHL All-Star. That's the question we have to ask himself.
Yeah, Tyler Nanny, who's a Ranger prospect, Lou Nanny's grandson. JVR is playing.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Let's see. Jake Gensel.
I know this group now that you've not even mentioned these. This is a group of this is not too dissimilar from a group that put together a benefit during the lockout. There's this group of players that a lot of them are Americans, and they during the lockout they put a charity game together as well. I remember I was part of this thing.
Russ, is Kessel playing in this?
It didn't say. It says puck drops July 19th, so I guess these are like exhibition games.
Bobby Ryan's in that group too.
And I guess they're going to play until the middle of August. So they've got some pretty good names. People can follow them at the Beauty League on Twitter. I think it's cool. I mean, they've got some good names.
I'm surprised more of this doesn't happen, honestly.
It's 4-on-4.
4-on-4. There's probably no hitting at all.
Yep.
It's going to be. It's just and this does happen. There are things like this that happen in Voorhees all the time too. Like in the.
Oh yeah, and they're giving money to charity. It's nice.
Yeah, or just the guys will rent out the rink for a bunch of days in a row and get games together.
I mean, we know that, like, for example,
Buffalo does this a ton too, Mike. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but in Buffalo, for years, guys like Briere and
oh yeah, that was the point I was going to make.
That's a picture of Paul Martin from recently. So I mean, Paul Martin's in it. They got some good talent.
In Toronto and in Buffalo, the players start to get together around like early August and skate at the the practice facility in Amherst or with the Leafs to play at their practice facility in Etobicoke. They do that. They get on the ice. I don't know if it's every day, but it's just to get your legs going.
For years, a whole bunch of that Sabres team that almost was a great team would get together.
Hold on, here's something, and I like the fact that Mike had no idea that JVR was playing. That was good. That made my day.
Yeah,
but
great.
Now I'm going to go one better on Mike and show him a JVR goal if this could come back up. So, yeah.
There's your typical JVR.
There's a JVR goal that Mike had no idea happened.
JVR Duke and backhand, typical JVR.
Yep.
Well, there may be a lot of JVR goals next year that I won't know anything about them happening because if he gets traded to another team.
All right, we have one more team to talk about. Vancouver.
Yes.
Will Vancouver be the best team in Canada next year? Probably most people will say no to that question, but
we're going to go with a big no.
They won't be the best team. But then again, I mean, will as many people say no to that question as said no to Ottawa last year? There were a lot of people. Granted, the Canucks. Now the Canucks are in an interesting.
I can think of one guy in particular.
Yes, the Canucks are an interesting year here in that the Sedins are in their final year of their contract. Here, this is it for the Sedins. $7 million this year. They are both UFAs next year. Will they be separated? Will they stay?
They won't be separated. My big prediction is they will be like the Ferraros and they will not be separated.
I think they will re-sign in Vancouver and end their careers there. That's my prediction.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Unless Brian Burke can get them somehow in Calgary.
He tried in Toronto.
I know.
Remember Ron Wilson got
tested them, and really brought them together in the beginning in the first place. So
you remember Ron Wilson got charged with tampering.
Oh yeah. Yep.
But no, my personal opinion.
Yep.
Is that the Vancouver Canucks are the worst team in Canada. The moves that they made during the offseason here, I like Sam Gagner, but adding Sam Gagner, adding Michael Del Zotto, adding Anders Nielsen, I think are just they're moves made to plug holes on a team that have more holes than the Titanic.
Their big signings were two players that 2 years ago were regular scratches for the Flyers.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I mean, it isn't fair, really, because Gagner had a hell of a year since then, and
yeah, I give him credit.
It was just 2 years ago that both those guys were having a tough time cracking the lineup in Philadelphia.
Gagner will do something for them. There's no question. Jake Virtanen had a good year in Utica. I think they did rush him, but I think he's going to add something, Mike. It's not like he's not going to do anything.
I don't know if he's going to make the team, Russ.
I think he has a decent shot at making that team. I do.
Yeah, they need to put him on that team.
Brock Besser looks really poised to make that team.
I agree.
And if Brock Besser makes it, that could be a guy that you could put with the Sedins and really get them going. And look, they're not great net. Markstrom is definitely going to be the worst goalie of the Canadian group in there. So that's what's going to make them the worst team in Canada. But just like I said last year, they're not a horrible team. They're going to be better than you think.
Yeah. I think so. They're not the worst team in the NHL, put it that way.
No, they're not the worst team in the NHL.
You have Arizona. You got other teams.
And even taking Vegas.
Las Vegas,
Well, I think Arizona will be better than.
See, but the thing is that right now the Canucks are there are a bunch of contradictions. They made trades that were more rebuilding type trades at the deadline, but then they go out and they sign veterans to plug the holes. This year, they've got Tanev and they've got Eric Branson, and there's been a lot of rumor about them trading Tanev. So I mean that's not yet, but there's still the possibility of them doing it. I mean, they
need to trade Tanev, but yeah, there are rumors of it, and that's for sure. And Toronto's trying their best to get them to take JVR for him, but that hasn't happened yet. This is a team that's still paying $1.6 million combined to Chris Higgins and Roberto Luongo.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's still this. I mean, and they've made a trade. They made a change in coaching. Okay, they're getting obviously this is. But the one thing I loved about this team was Willie Desjardins. I really thought he was one of the big. I mean, I really trusted, and I think Desjardins is one of those guys who will get a job this year at some point. Somebody will jump on him again because he needs another chance. I mean, this was
probably not a playoff team, but I think they will put a scare into a lot of teams they play.
Yeah. So let's go through this real fast because we're running out of time.
Yep.
I'm going to go through these Canadian teams, and you're going to tell me whether or not they are playoff teams, okay? And then we're going to rank them. So, all right. So we're going to start with Montreal. Montreal playoff team?
Yes.
Yep.
Maybe on that. Toronto a playoff team?
Yes.
No.
Ooh. I'm going to go with yes. Interesting. Ottawa playoff team.
No.
Yes.
Yes, too.
Good that Mike's consistent, though.
Yes. That was predicting Mike. Calgary, a playoff team.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Edmonton, a playoff team.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Winnipeg, a playoff team.
No.
Yes.
No. Barely. I think they're right on the bubble. And Vancouver, obviously, not a playoff.
No.
So you said, you already gave it away a little bit, Russ, by saying but give me your top three. Calgary's the best team. Your top
Calgary, Edmonton, and then I think it's close. It's close between the rest. I'm going to go Ottawa for the third.
Oh, for the third, okay.
I think the Leafs are right after that.
Yeah, right there. So you don't have Montreal in that at all. So
no.
Okay, Mike, your top three teams.
Edmonton, Calgary, Toronto. Toronto and Calgary, I think, are pretty close, but different type of teams. One defensive, one offensive.
Okay. I'm going to go Edmonton, Calgary, Toronto as well, I think. I'm going to go with you on that one. Our fans so far, 1,000 votes. You guys are phenomenal. 1,000 votes in like 35 or no, it's over an hour now. 1,000 votes. Guess who you think they think the top team is?
They're going to say Edmonton.
They're going to say Toronto because you have a lot of Toronto viewers.
Edmonton at 35.25%.
Okay. Good try, Mike.
Top team. Second team, Toronto at 26.32.
See, there you go.
After that, this is a good guess who it would be.
Montreal.
Yeah, Montreal 16.48. Calgary 11.62. 11.62.
Okay. For you people that have Calgary in that spot, you need to relook at the situation. Reevaluate.
Better than for people who think Montreal is better than Calgary, Russ thinks you've got another thing coming.
You've got to have your head examined.
Ottawa at 6.45%.
Poor Ottawa. I mean, they just no respect.
Now, if Ottawa scores in overtime against the Penguins last year and goes to the Stanley Cup Finals, are they still at 6.45%? I think they are. And my thinking on this is that
this is a popularity contest as much as anything.
I think it really is a popularity contest, and Ottawa definitely doesn't have the popularity.
No, they don't.
Canada, and they didn't even get it last year. Winnipeg at 1.99 and Vancouver at 1.89%. So they've got both those teams, and I think that's really unfair on Winnipeg as well. Like I think Winnipeg is way better than to say they're 1/10 better than Vancouver. That's not fair.
That's not fair.
I mean, there's so much more.
They're a lot better.
So much more talent on Winnipeg.
Again, I'll tell you what this goes into, and this is at Flyers development camp. I was talking to someone about Steve Mason, and if you look at what Steve Mason did with the Flyers the last couple of years, the most success the Flyers had to do with Steve Mason.
Oh yeah. Without Mason, they don't make the playoffs, and they don't have 2 years ago. They don't have their good run this year.
Right, and so but again, then he gets dealt, and people go back to dumping on Steve Mason. I don't get it.
Yeah. Now the key to Mason, like I've said before, will be if he's the only goalie. If they try to tandem him, you're not going to get what you want out of him.
Sure.
In both those cases, where the Flyers made the playoffs and when the Flyers went on their run, Neuwirth was hurt.
Right.
Well, and then this is the thing.
Played for them in the playoffs, remember? But
this
was phenomenal. But still,
this is the thing, though, because this is a big year for Cheveldayoff and for Maurice with all those RFAs out there. They've added Kulikov, they've added Mason. I think the moves that they've made are consistent with them. Sort of, it's the playoffs or bust, and that to me means Hellebuck taking a step back and Mason being the number one.
Yeah, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that because Hellebuck's young in his career. That's okay to do that.
Right.
It needs to be made clear to Mason because Mason is not. He's the kind of goalie who does need to know he's the number one, and he needs to play. You got to play Mason 3 games in a row, like kind of thing. You can't. 4 out of every 5 games, he's got to be in there. That kind of thing. It's like.
I think that's fair, and I think if they do that, they will see an improvement in that.
They will, Mason because Mason can be it's proven he was a good goalie with a not great defense in front of him at times, and that's he can take a lot of.
Mason. The one thing you never have to worry about is him showing up distracted or whatever. This guy can play through a lot of stuff, and I felt like he never utilized Philly, like because he's just like a boring guy. So Winnipeg's perfect for him because there's nothing to do in Winnipeg.
Yeah, it's true. He also doesn't give up many bad goals. Like he's there's of all the goalies that I've seen in Philly for several years now, I think he's the one who gives up the least amount of bad goals. He doesn't necessarily make the most amount of incredible saves, but he like game save, like crazy. Like there are some Neuver saves that he can.
No, but he'll make sequential saves. He'll make like 2 or 3 really good ones in a row that help stop a rally for the other team because the Flyers defense broke down again.
Yeah, and he'll have periods where he's crazy hot, and that'll help. So I think it'll be. I mean that is a lot of people I think are going to be picking against the Flyers when things come out because of the fact that Mason's not there. I think that will play into it.
It will play into it to some degree because right now you don't know what Elliott's going to do there. Maybe Kim Dillabaugh turns Elliott back into the guy when he was back in Ottawa and he was an all-star. It's possible. Neuwirth's going to get the start on the season. Like there's no way Elliott's starting the season. We all know it's going to be Neuwirth, and then we'll have to see what happens after that.
Exactly. All right, guys, all the time every day. We'll be back again tomorrow. We'll get back to some rumors, but it was a lot of fun today talking not rumors and talking some hockey for me at least.
Yep, same here.
And we'll definitely get back into some rumors tomorrow. There are some things bubbling under the surface, and we'll also look into this Carolina thing. That's going to be fun to watch. And in general, what we've learned about the NHL is that they are so tough on leaks about teams being sold that if something comes out, it's usually right. I mean, they do not like people to leak anything about a team being even talked about being sold until it actually happens. So to me, this has gotten to the point where the person who is buying the team has been given the okay to tell somebody about it because, but this has probably been going on for months, and it's finally said, NHL has finally said it's all right. You can leak this out to somebody. But
and I have a rumor. I'm following up on this with Mike going to the Anchor Bar within the last couple of years, even though he protests and says it's horrible. I'm hearing otherwise. I'm going to follow up on that.
No, that's an E1. I never go to the Anchor Bar. It's crap. It's tourist trap. It's worthless. Yeah, sorry, don't sue me. But
well, remember, without the buzz and without the Anchor Bar, it's just hockey. Talk to you soon.